If a pro fighter did his jujitsu on him, then the guy's gonna come back and duct tape his family. Pro fighters are the epitome of squares. They're like, come in the ring and I'll fight you. UFC fighting is gay. Like all that shit, like MMA fighting and all that shit is for people who never really were in fights.
All right, so during a live stream recently, Wes Watson went on one of his most delusional and idiotic rants ever, which is saying a lot because every day he goes on some deranged rant where he just sounds completely unhinged, but this one is something else. You know, he decided to call out the best fighters in the world for being cowards because they aren't violent enough for him. Like, Wes keeps calling MMA fighters squares, and it sounds like he only respects people that are violent who are willing to kill people. I think that's what he's trying to say here, but you could tell he's just trying to think of any way he can to criticize UFC fighters. And I guess he thinks the best way to do that is to talk about how unhinged his friends are because they're willing to kill people and go to jail for it. And he also says that MMA fighters and boxers aren't real fighters because they train to fight. I don't know how that makes any sense. And he also criticizes them for only fighting in the ring, even though a lot of them get in street fights as well. And I'm sure they'd be open to a street fight with Wes if he wants. But we all know Wes is the real coward here. You know, he had his chance to prove how tough he is. Like, he's begging his haters to come meet him at the gym to fight him. And somebody finally took the opportunity. And Wes, he needed 3 of his boys to jump in and help him. But I guess Wes thinks that makes him more of a tough guy for some reason. You know, the fact that he's scared to fight a fair fight. So, of course, he acts like it's cool to go to jail for attacking people. You know, apparently he respects that more than people stepping in the octagon to fight. So once again, Wes is proving he's an unhinged idiot that has no self-control. And the fact he's trying to make this behavior sound cool while he's on trial for assault is wild.
Don't encourage anyone to run up to these pro fighters. Pro fighters are pussies, okay? They're only good in the ring. People I know will not accept a loss, okay? If a pro fighter did his jujitsu on him, then the guy's gonna come back and duct tape his family, okay? You don't want to fuck with the wrong people. And the wrong people out here in the world are not pro fighters. You guys need to wake up. These are very big time squares. Pro fighters are the epitome of squares. They're like, come in the ring and I'll fight you. The people I grew up with and went to prison with, they don't give a fuck about a ring. They don't give a fuck if they're on camera. They don't give a fuck if they have to fucking live the rest of their life in prison. You will not beat them. They will not take a loss. You guys live in a fantasy world where pro fighters aren't the biggest squares on the planet. UFC fighting is gay. Like all that shit, like MMA fighting and all that shit is for people who never really were in fights. Like they never whooped ass their whole life. So they're always like, I'm gonna train and fight. Like I've always just handled shit very easily. I never had to think about fighting because I always just extinguished the problem however I had to. So the point is like, that's for people who like never could really fight. They had to go learn to fight. I mean, people who just handle business, they don't have to learn to fight. There's a difference between fighters and violent people. You should really stay away from violent people because it doesn't matter how good you are at fighting when they want to take it to the level. They'll take you out. And so there's a huge difference here. You guys have it all misconstrued. Fighting is some weird sport shit that is all these people do, and it has nothing to do with violence because a violent person will end your life. And this is the thing. You guys need to quit thinking that UFC people are gonna be able to fuck around with violent motherfuckers. Because a violent motherfucker won't lose. He won't take it. And you'll be like, wait, put the gloves on. And he's not gonna hear it. And it's gonna be a problem for you. So what? You have an active case. Why are you talking about this?
Yeah, so Wes never disappoints. I mean, the guy's facing jail time, and he still doesn't tone down how unhinged he is at all. Like, this is a generational crash out from him, and he ended up deleting this stream. Maybe he had a moment of self-awareness or something, but that's probably unlikely. You know, his lawyer probably just told him to take it down because this is a terrible look for him. And I thought Wes was probably trying to get a beef going with fighters, but some big fighters responded, and it sounds like Wes doesn't want that smoke now. Like former UFC middleweight champion Sean Strickland called Wes out, but Wes had no response to him so far. You know, I think he might be scared. It turns out he's actually not that tough. But this is what Sean had to say. Somebody asked him if he's going to accept Wes Watson's challenge, and Sean said, LMAO, bro, what are you talking about? Watson from Bellator? So he has no idea who Wes is. He thinks he's a fighter in a different league. So this must be embarrassing for Wes because he thinks everybody knows who he is. He thinks of himself as like the most famous person alive and the most interesting man alive.
You understand, I am massively famous. I have to guide everybody because they suck. But I don't like people. You're pussies. You're pushovers. I am 6 foot, so it doesn't matter. Man, I am the most interesting man. Like that guy in the Dos Equis commercials. That's like me. Most interesting man alive.
Yeah, so then somebody explained to Sean Strickland who Wes is. They said Wes is some roided up, muscle bound douchebag that yells on his phone all day, made his name from making prison YouTube videos, and he said on video that UFC fighters are pussies and squares that aren't that tough. And Sean said, guys that are into fitness are closeted gays who are too ashamed to jerk off to dudes, so they jerk off to themselves doing squats. Yeah, and that describes Wes pretty well. And then also a former UFC fighter, Dean Lister, he responded to and said, anyone heard of this guy? Damn, it would be so easy to beat him in less than a minute, unless he had like 4 friends or something. Such an embarrassment. And then also Gordon Ryan, who's like one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world, he responded and said, imagine living in this delusion. The people you're talking about could make sweet love to you and you couldn't do a thing about it. Also, you want to see real violent people who know and are good at high-end violence. Make friends with vets, not I see red bro cons. Yeah, so Wes was just getting humiliated by these people, as expected. They're all bragging about how they could end him in a minute or R-word him in a minute, which probably just sounds like a good time to him. And I think that's probably why he's secretly looking forward to going back to jail. But of course, Wes, the big alpha male, tough guy, he talks all this shit about fighters and how they're cowards, but then once they call him out and say they could kick his ass, he has nothing to say about it. But I think he did kind of respond to some of the fighting commentary channels. He never says anyone's name, though, and he acts like he's above internet beef. Now all of a sudden he acts like he's just too mature for this kind of stuff. So this man is just so pathetic.
So for every clown that takes it to the internet for fame because they think you have to have like an internet Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef when I don't know who they are and they try to copy me and shit, and they have no following, they've never done anything, and they bought their tattoos at the store. Those people are always just trying to get internet fame through top people like me. But what most people don't see is that when we were at the gym right now, and when we were at Pura Vida right now, at least 7 people came up and said, Wes, you changed my fucking life. I absolutely love you.
And that story's made up. I mean, this is just getting sad. Like, this guy really wants us to believe that 7 people ran up to him at the gym and told him they love him. Like, that just sounds so ridiculous. But Wes, he just fantasizes all day about stuff like this. He is so desperate for attention. I mean, he wants to be a famous celebrity so badly. Like, recently there was a post on the Wes Watson subreddit from someone who worked at a restaurant in Miami that Wes would go to. And they claimed he got into it with the valet because they wouldn't park his car in the very front. So he stopped using the valet, and if there's not a spot open in the front, then he'll just drive around in circles for up to an hour sometimes, waiting for a spot to open. And then he'll do like 10 takes getting in and out of his car for videos and pictures and to probably get people's attention. Like, also apparently he just stands around his car all the time waiting for people to run up to him and waiting for interviewers. He loves those street interviews.
Can you guys share with our viewers what you do for a living?
What do you do for a living? I'm Wes Watson. Everybody knows who I am.
What's your name?
Wes Watson.
Wes Watson? Okay, awesome. Sure.
And I'm sure Wes is thinking, dude, you should know who I am already. I'm massively famous. Like, he just wants people to recognize him so badly. It's awesome. And Wes, he surrounds himself with sycophants. Like, it's so funny. He says everyone's copying him because it seems like a lot of the people he keeps around him are copying him. They try to look like him and act like him. Like, one of his orbiters, this guy Clinton Dye, he tried explaining Wes's comments more about the UFC. He had to back Wes up because people were being too mean to him on the internet. So he tried to defend him, and he sounded just as deranged as Wes. Like, this did not help.
Some of you may have fundamentally missed the point of the UFC comment. Here's the deal. Right now, in your society, there are people walking around you every single day that have killed before or looking for an excuse to kill again. But you think you're going to meet them at the coffee shop. You're going to square up, you're going to throw a couple combos, maybe get lucky, knock them out, or put them in a rear naked choke like you were taught in the jiu-jitsu box. Everything's going to be okay. But in reality, that psychopath is going to pull out a piece, plug 2 into your chest, and then they're going to sit down and finish the coffee that you were drinking. And they're going to be more mad that they got blood on their fucking chucks than they took your life without hesitation. That man's going to step over your carcass, just like that and continue the day like nothing even happened.
So I guess their point is there are people out in society that are psychopaths that will kill you. Like, nobody's aware of that. But of course, only Wes and his goons would act like some unhinged lunatics are more badass than UFC fighters. But let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments. And if you want extra content from me, I recently talked about Wes having this meltdown and going on a racist rant during that same live stream. I talked about that over on Patreon. So if you like the Wes videos, or if you want to hear about some of Rogan's cringiest podcasts, or how Tim Pool has been imploding lately, make sure to check out my Patreon. There are over 130 exclusive videos and I post every week. So if you like the content, you want more of it, make sure you check it out. There'll be a link in the description.